Let me begin by, wow, what a crowd. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you all for coming out on a Saturday morning. And let me thank Joe and April and George for their very, very kind introductions. Before I go any further, let me introduce my wife, Jane. Jane, jump up. She's way in the back there. The truth is, I plead guilty to loving to do meetings like this. I have done hundreds of them in my own state of Vermont. And the reason I love them is what we are doing today is something very radical, something that is not done much in America. We are practicing democracy. The radical idea. So nothing fancy, no big marching bands, just ordinary people coming together as citizens of our great country to kind of lay on the table the problems that we face and talk about how we solve them. That's about it. It's called democracy. It happens too little in America, and that's what we're doing today. Before I get into the substance of my remarks, I want to tell you a little bit about the campaign. If I was here, my wife and I were here 4 months ago, and you asked me whether I would be running for president, I would have honestly told you I'm not quite sure whether I want to do it. And a lot of reasons why. The most significant one is that has nothing to do with me, but is the understanding that the issues that are of concern to people, creating a middle class which can live in dignity, protecting the elderly, protecting the children, it has to be done well. I was wondering in my heart, can I do it? You know, we're outside of the establishment. We don't have establishment support. We don't have the kinds of super PACs that these other guys have. Media is not going to be particularly friendly to our message. Can we do it? And I thought about that a lot. But at the end of the day, this is what I also thought about. I have 4 kids and I have 7 grandchildren. My dad came to this country at the age of 17 without a nickel in his pocket, never made any money, but was the proudest American that you could see because this country allowed him to raise his kids in freedom and to do okay. And I believe that for the sake of my grandchildren, I want to see this country work for them. I want to see them be able to enjoy the beauty of this country, the strength of this country. And bottom line is that's why I'm going to nothing more complicated than that. Let me just say a few words of what's happened in the last 3.5 months. We started this campaign, and we didn't kind of know what happened. I hired a couple of people that I've known in Vermont for 30 or 40 years, good friends of mine, and we started the ball rolling. And what happened is, as we began to go around the country, what we saw is not different than what we're seeing here. This is a remarkable crowd on a Saturday morning in Boone, Iowa. It's extraordinary. But we're seeing crowds like this all over this country. We just came back from the West Coast. We had 15,000 people out in Seattle. We had 28,000 people out in Portland, Oregon. We had 27,000 people out in Los Angeles. Huge crowds all over America. But it's not only the crowds. In terms of money, I am proud to tell you that I believe I am the only candidate running for President of the United States that does not have a super PAC. I don't want millionaires and billionaires to be running my campaign. That's a fact. I don't represent their interests. I don't want their money, period. So we don't take any corporate PAC money. But we were saying, okay, well, that's a very noble, nice thing to say. Actually, it's not that hard because the billionaires were never going to contribute to our campaign in the first place. So I can reject their money. Koch brothers are not sending checks, all right. But here's the question, and it's a serious political question in the world of 2015 politics. Can you raise enough money to run a winning campaign? We didn't know the answer to that. We're not going to get, we don't do big dollar fundraisers and all that stuff. Well, you know what? As of today, and this is incredible to me, 350,000 Americans have contributed to our campaign. How's that? And that is more than any other candidate. But here's the other thing that's really interesting. You know what the average contribution is? $31.20. How's that? So for better or worse, and I think it's for better, what you are looking at is a people's campaign. From the people, for the people. The other thing that I want to tell you that other candidates will not tell you, that makes this campaign very different, is not only our progressive vision, and that's what I'm going to get to in a moment, but there's something else that I have to be honest with you about that other people really are not. And it saddens me to say it, but it's the truth and you should know it. No president, not Bernie Sanders, not anybody else, who gets elected president will in fact be able to address the enormous problems facing working families in this country today unless there is a political revolution. So what do I mean by that? What I mean by that, and this is the sad truth of America today, which politicians do not have the courage to acknowledge to their constituents, is the billionaire class, Wall Street, corporate America, the corporate media, have so much power that it is impossible for any president to address the needs of working families unless, and this is where our campaign is different, we have a mass political movement which says to the folks in Washington, loudly and clearly, number one, we are voting. Number two, we are paying attention. Number three, we're not idiots. Number four, you will start representing the middle class and working class of this country and not just the billionaires of America. Now, let me give you an example of what I mean by that. Barack Obama is a friend of mine. He is somebody I have a lot of respect for, admiration for. I disagree with him on a number of issues we'll talk about, but basically I think he has tried his best against incredible opposition. But here's a mistake. As I had the opportunity to tell him, in my view, here is the biggest mistake that President Obama made. In 2008, and those of you in Iowa know this better than anybody else, Barack Obama ran one of the great campaigns in American political history. That's the simple fact. And he came to a virtually all-white state, and he won it here. And that says a lot about the people of Iowa. Thank you for that. But it wasn't just that. He brought all kinds of people together, and he generated a kind of excitement that we had not seen for decades. And he gave people hope. And it was an extraordinary campaign. I played a little bit of a role in that campaign, did my best to see him get elected. But what happened, and this was the mistake that he made, after he got elected, what he essentially said is, thank you millions of people for getting me elected, but I'll take it from here. I'm on my own. I will sit down, I'll negotiate with John Boehner, I'll negotiate with Mitch McConnell. And he was wrong on two counts. First of all, these guys never, ever had any intention of serious negotiation. They were there to obstruct from day one, and that's the simple truth. But second of all, and here is the bigger mistake, that given the nature of power in America today, and that is that you don't have it. The Koch brothers do, corporate America does, Wall Street does. They have lobbyists that spend zillions of dollars influencing legislation. What Obama should have known, and what I do know, is that unless we have millions of people involved, not just in the campaign, but the day after the campaign, we will not be able to transform this country. So the bad news is, guys, we got your names, we need you now, but we're going to need you the day after the election. Now, it is true that these guys have all the money. You do not know how much money they have, literally endless amounts of money. The only question they have got to ask themselves is when too much is too much. How many ads can the people of Iowa tolerate? But they have the money to do 24/7, so that is not their problem. They have the ads, they have the money to put all the calls on telephones and everything else. All right. What do we have that they don't have? We have passion, and we have the people. And when people stand together, we can defeat big money, and that's what this campaign is about. We have the people, and we have the ideas. And let me just talk for a moment about some of the concerns that I have and some of the ideas that I have about how we can go forward, and then we'll take your questions and comments. And one of the interesting and fun things about running for president is that you can put issues out there on the table which other people prefer not to talk about, which the big money interests prefer to sweep under the rug. But we're going to bring them right out in the open, and what we're seeing from coast to coast is people are saying, yes, thank you. You're talking about not gossip, you're not making personal attacks on Hillary or anybody else. We're going to talk. Now, I cannot tell you that there is a day that goes by when media does not want me to be attacking Hillary Clinton, but I'm not going to do it. We have differences of opinion on the issues. I will discuss those because they're very profound differences. But I have never, you're looking at a politician who has never run a negative political ad in his long political life. I have found that in Vermont, and I expect all over this country, people are sick and tired of candidates beating up everybody else. What they really want to hear is an analysis of the issues and your ideas about how we move this country forward. So let me touch on some of the profound issues that are facing our country. And the first one, and maybe the most significant, is the issue of income and wealth inequality. You are living in a nation today which has more income and wealth inequality than any other major country on earth. You are living in a nation where the gap between the very, very rich and everybody else is growing wider, and it is worse today than at any time since 1928. This is the wealthiest country in the history of the world. I want everybody to know this. If we were a poor country, if we were in Haiti, we would have a certain type of discussion appropriate to what a poor nation can do. We are not a poor nation. Wealthiest nation in the history of the world, but the vast majority of the people don't know that, They're struggling to keep their heads above water, and they don't know that we're wealthy because almost all of the new wealth and income is going into the hands of the top 1%, and together we are going to change that. Now you tell me if I'm missing something here, but I think there is something profoundly wrong when the top, not 1%, top 1/10 of 1% owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. 1/10 of 1%, 90%. There is something profoundly wrong when 58% of all new income generated now goes to the top 1%. There is something profoundly wrong. This is America we're talking about. That's a third world country where one family, the Walton family of Walmart, owns more wealth than the bottom 40% of the American people. There is something profoundly wrong. Listen to this. In the last 2 years, the wealthiest 14 people, not a lot of people, Bill Gates, Buffett, Koch brothers, those guys, 14 people earned saw their wealth increase by $158 billion. 14 people. That is more wealth that is owned by the bottom 130 million Americans. That level of income and wealth inequality, that grotesque level, is not sustainable, it is not good economics, but most importantly, it is not what America is supposed to be about. We need an economy that works for all of us and not a handful of billionaires. This is a rigged economy. Middle-class people are working 50, 60, 70 hours a week. They're going nowhere in a hurry, and yet the rich get much richer. And what this campaign is about, and it's tough, because there has not been a campaign in recent history trying to do this. What this campaign is about is telling the billionaire class, you cannot have it all. You can't get huge tax breaks when kids in Iowa and Vermont go hungry. You cannot, corporate America, continue to send our jobs to China when millions of people in this country desperately need work. What we're telling the billionaire class is they cannot continue to hide their profits in the Cayman Islands and in Bermuda. They are going to start paying their fair share of taxes. Now, this issue of income and wealth inequality is a tough issue. It's a tough issue because these guys are enormously powerful. And they don't want anyone messing with their greed. They believe they have a right to own this country. They believe they have a right to own our political system. And they don't want you and they don't want me to be messing with that power. But in my view, if we do not take them on, then the future of this country for our kids and our grandchildren will not be a bright one. Our message to them, loudly and clearly, is that this country, this great country, our government belongs to all of us. They cannot have it all. And when we talk about the economy, let's be clear, let's lay it on the table. Everybody in this room knows that in recent years we have seen an explosion of technology and increased worker productivity, all right? You know, what that means is workers today, because of technology, are producing a lot more than workers doing similar jobs used to produce. That's the fact. Logically, you would conclude that if I gave you a tool that allowed you to produce more, one of two things happen. Either you're now earning substantially more income, or you're working fewer hours. But the truth is exactly the opposite. Despite an explosion of technology, working people are working longer hours. Many of them are earning less income. What's wrong with that picture? Median family income, that family right in the middle of the American economy, has seen its income go down by almost $5,000 since 1999. So once again, what we're looking at is a rigged economy. 14 people on the top see a $158 billion increase in their wealth in 2 years. People in Iowa working longer hours for lower wages. And our job, simply stated, is to create an economy for the middle class, for our kids, and not just for the people on top. Now, when we talk about the economy, we also have got to talk about unemployment. And every month, the government comes out with one set of figures, which says that unemployment, official unemployment, is 5.3%. How many of you believe that real unemployment in America is 5.3%? The truth is, there's another set of government statistics that we don't talk about very often. And that says we add together those people who are unemployed, those people who have given up looking for work, and the millions of people who are working part-time 20 hours when they want to work 40 hours. You add that together, real unemployment in America is over 10%, not 5.3%. And let me now tell you something that nobody, almost nobody, talks about at all. And that is the crisis of youth unemployment. Last month, I asked the Economic Policy Institute to do a study about real youth unemployment in America. This is what they found. For kids 17 to 20 who graduated high school, if they were white, youth unemployment, 33%. If they were Hispanic, 36%. If they were African American, 51%. 51%. Now, if anyone thinks that it is a coincidence that in America we have more people in jail than any other country on earth, when you have unemployment rates for kids hanging out on street corners all over America, you will be sorely mistaken. In my view, and I will fight as president to make this happen, we are going to invest in jobs and education for our kids, not jails, not incarceration. I want America to have the best educated population on earth, not more people in jail than any other country. And when we talk about the economy, let's lay another issue on the table. The reason that people in my state and in Iowa are working 2 or 3 jobs, the reason that the vast majority of people who go to emergency food shelves are working families that are not making enough to feed their families. The reason for all of that is that millions of our people are working at wages which are abysmally low. Low wages, major crisis in America. In my view, the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour is a starvation wage. We have got to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, $15 an hour, over the next several years. is not a radical idea, and we have got to get into this mindset. It is not a radical idea to say that if somebody works 40 hours a week, that person should not be living in poverty. It is not a radical idea to say that when a mom trying to take care of her kids goes out to work, that she should be earning enough money to feed her kids. That is not a radical idea. That's what we have got to do. But when we talk about wages, there's another issue that we have to throw out on the table. And I would hope that every man in this room will stand with the women in demanding pay equity for women workers. There is no rational reason other than a history of sexism which has women today earning 78 cents on the dollar compared to men. And that has got to change. Now, let me talk about another issue for a second. You in Iowa have the, what can I say, the distinction of hearing a whole lot of politicians talk about a whole lot of things. And one of the things that you'll hear many of my Republican colleagues talking about are family values, right? These guys just love families. Stay up nights worrying about families. So let's talk about family values. My wife and I have 4 kids. We got 7 grandchildren. We've been married for 27 years. We believe in family values and strengthening American families. When Republicans talk about family values, this is what they mean. They mean that women in America should not have the right to control their own bodies. I disagree. They believe, Republicans believe that women are not smart enough to be able to purchase the contraceptives that they need. I disagree. And when Republicans talk about family values, what they also are talking about is that our gay brothers and sisters and our friends and our family members who are gay should not be able to get married or enjoy the other benefits of American citizenship. I strongly disagree. Now, those are Republican family values, shared not by all Republicans, I'm sure, but certainly many of the leaders of the presidential candidates. Let me tell you about my family values. My family values are about ending the international embarrassment where the United States of America today is the only major country on earth, the only one, that does not guarantee family and medical leave to its people. What does that mean? What does that mean in English? This is what it means. It means that today in Iowa and today in Vermont, a woman is giving birth and having a beautiful baby. It is an enormous day for that woman, for the father, the family, and a pretty big day for the baby as well. But, and here's the but, if that woman's family has enough income, she will be able to stay home with that baby in the most important days of that baby's life and her life. Getting to love that baby, getting to know that baby, getting to bond with that baby, and dad will be there as well. What an extraordinary experience, and every parent in this room knows what that's about. We've all gone through that. Extraordinary, unbelievable, okay? So if that family has the money, that's what will happen. And that's a wonderful thing for the mom, it's a wonderful thing for the dad, wonderful thing for the baby. But if that mother does not have sufficient income, you know what happens? That mom is forced to go back to work in 5 days, in 7 days, in 10 days. We are the only major country that doesn't allow, regardless of income, moms and dads to spend time with their babies. That, to me, is not a family value. That is the exact opposite of family values, and that is why I support 3 months of paid family leave for moms. By the way, we have also got to end the absurdity of being the only major country on earth that doesn't guarantee paid sick time and paid vacation time for workers as well. When pollsters go out and they ask you what's on your mind, the answer almost invariably, issue of most important, is jobs. Why is that? Because people understand the fragility of the economy today. If you are 50 years of age and you're going to go to work on Monday, people are worried that somebody is going to come up to them and say, Harry, thanks so much for your 30 years of work, but you know what? We just hired somebody else, and actually he's going to be working for half wages for what you get. And if you're a kid and a high school graduate, you know how hard it is to get a job. And if you're a college graduate, how hard it is to get a job commensurate with your education. So people are deeply concerned about the job situation. What I have introduced into the Senate is legislation that will rebuild our crumbling infrastructure. That's our roads, our bridges, our rails, our airport, water systems, wastewater plants. $1 trillion over a 5-year period. It will create 13 million decent paying jobs. So it accomplishes 2 things. We need to have a strong infrastructure, cutting-edge rail, cutting-edge transportation, airports, but we also need to create millions of decent-paying jobs. But when we talk about jobs, it's not only creating jobs, it is preventing the loss of more jobs. Let me spend 1 second on an issue that is not sexy, but enormously important. And that is our disastrous trade policies. You're looking at a senator and former congressman who proudly voted against NAFTA, CAFTA, and permanent normal trade relations for Canada. And you're looking at a senator who will help lead the effort against this disastrous Trans-Pacific Partnership trade agreement. We need a trade policy that works for the middle class and working families and not just the CEOs of large corporations. We need a trade policy through which jobs are created in this country and poor people around the world are treated with dignity. We do not need a trade policy which exploits poor people abroad, leads us to the race to the bottom, and enriches a handful of CEOs of large corporations. And let me touch on another issue that deserves a whole lot of discussion. And that is that when we talk about greed, and when we talk about arrogance, and when we talk about recklessness and dishonesty, these are just a few of the adjectives we use to describe Wall Street. Wall Street. What we have right now is a small number of huge financial institutions who today are bigger, 3 out of the 4 are bigger today than they were when we bailed them out because they were too big to fail. The top 6 financial institutions in this country have assets of some $10 trillion, about 60% of the GDP of America. They produce huge amounts of our credit cards and our mortgages. In my view, if a financial institution is too big to fail, it is too big to exist. Not only should we be reestablishing Glass-Steagall, but we should be breaking up these huge financial entities. You know, often somebody will come up to me and they say, well, Bernie, what is the most important issue? And it's impossible for me to give the answer. Is it the collapse of the American middle class? Is it income and wealth inequality? Is it climate change? What is it? Well, I don't know. I really can't tell you. But I will tell you one issue which impacts every other issue that we are all concerned about. And that is that as a result of the disastrous Supreme Court decision on Citizens United, the American political system, and you can quote me on this, has been totally corrupted, and the foundations of American democracy are being undermined. Right? Now, why is that issue such a huge issue? And the answer is pretty obvious. It impacts every other issue. Because if billionaires, as they are trying to do right now through their super PACs, if billionaires are able to elect a Congress and a White House that represents their interest, then who is going to be representing the needs of the middle class and working families on every issue? So this issue is enormous. You know, I am the former chairman of the Senate Veterans Committee. And in that capacity, I had the opportunity of meeting so many wonderful, wonderful people who have put their lives on the line to defend our country and our way of life. I do not believe that men and women put their lives on the line going way, way back to defend a situation where a handful of billionaires will control the political process in the United States of America. In my view, when you have a situation where one family, I want you to think about this, this is the United States of America. It's not Paraguay. It is not some small country somewhere. This is the United States of America, the longest standing democracy in the world today. When you have one family, in this case the Koch brothers, an extreme right-wing family that wants to end Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, federal aid to education, when that one family will spend more money in this campaign than either the Democratic or Republican Party, you tell me what that system is. Is that really a democracy? I don't think so. It is an oligarchy. You know, when we were kids, we read about countries where a handful of families control the economics and politics. Wake up, brothers and sisters. It is happening here, and we must not allow that to continue. I have not made a whole lot of campaign promises so far. I guess I will as the campaign goes on. But here's one I have made, and I repeat to you. Any nominee of mine to the United States Supreme Court, before that nomination is made, will stand up before the American people and say loudly and clearly that their first order of business on the Supreme Court will be to overturn Citizens United. only that, I want, the theme of this campaign is to think big, not small. It's not only overturning Citizens United, going back to where we were, because where we were was not so good. It is moving in a new direction. This is what I believe. If you scratch my soul, what you'll find is somebody who is a fervent believer in democracy. I love democracy, I really do. I love that people will come out this morning, that will talk, will argue, that we have friends who disagree with us, we treat people respectfully. That is fantastic. That's what I believe. But I want the day to come when any person in this room, and we've got some young people in this room, I want them to be able to run for office without having to beg money from the wealthy and the powerful. And that's why I believe we got to move toward public funding of elections. And talking about young people, there is something very, very wrong today. When at a time when we are living in a highly competitive global economy, we have hundreds of thousands of bright, qualified young people who cannot get a higher education. For one reason, and one reason alone, and that is their families lack the money. That makes no sense to me. It is not fair to those young people who are struggling, who may want to become doctors or engineers or scientists or teachers or police officers or what. It is not fair to them not to allow them to get an education, but more significantly, it is not fair to us as a nation. We desperately need all the intellectual capabilities we can have. And that is why I have introduced legislation which will revolutionize education in this country. And that says that every public college and university in America will be tuition free. And in that legislation, we are also going to deal with a horrible situation now where millions of individuals in this country are struggling under oppressive student debt. It makes no sense to me, nor to you, I think, that we have folks who are paying 8, 9, 10% interest rates on their student debt when you could refinance your home or 2 or 3%. So we're going to allow folks to refinance, and we're going to get the government out of the business of profiteering on the student debt of working class and middle class families. When we talk about our responsibilities as parents and as adults, there is perhaps nothing more important than leaving this planet healthy and habitable for our kids and our grandchildren. The debate is over. According to almost all of the scientists who have studied the issue, climate change is real, it is caused by human activity, and it is already causing devastating problems around the world. And what the scientists tell us, if we do not act boldly in a short period of time, this planet may be, at the end of the century, 5 to 10 degrees warmer. That is extraordinary. What that means is more drought, more floods, more extreme weather disturbances, more acidification of the oceans, more rising sea levels, and what the CIA tells us, it will mean more international conflict because you'll have peoples fighting over limited natural resources. We have a moral responsibility to lead the world, working with China and Russia and India and other countries, to transform our energy system away from fossil fuels to energy efficiency and sustainable energies like wind, solar, geothermal, and biomass. Congratulations to Iowa for being one of the leaders in America in moving toward win. Great job. And when we talk about how we, in certain regards, compare to other countries, I want everybody here to know that our great country, the United States of America, is the only major country on earth that does not guarantee health care to all people as a right. It won't be easy and it won't happen overnight. But in my view, this country must move toward a Medicare for all single-payer program. Think of what America looks like when anybody, at any time, can go to the doctor and not worry about the cost. Think of what it means to workers who do not have to stay on their jobs because of health care rather than going to the work they want to go to. Think of what it means to small and medium-sized businesses who can focus on their business rather than worrying about how they get health care for their workers. Now, today I want to celebrate a birthday. It's a birthday not of anybody in this room. It is the 80th anniversary plus 1 day of Social Security. Happy birthday, Social Security. Now, I know when you turn on the TV, you hear all these Republican guys and these corporate think tank guys, they say, well, Social Security is going broke. It's a lie. Social Security has over $2.5 trillion in the trust fund, can pay out every benefit owed to every eligible American for the next 18 years. And then you hear some other guys, including virtually every Republican candidate for president, not everyone, but most of them, Chris Christie, Jeb Bush, most of them, are talking about cutting Social Security, and they're worried about the deficit. All of you know that Social Security has not added 1 cent to the deficit because it's paid independently by the payroll tax. In my view, given the fact that in Iowa, and you got over 600,000 people here who receive Social Security, in Iowa, Vermont, all over this country, you've got seniors trying to get by on $12,000, $13,000 a year. They can't afford to pay for their medicine, feed themselves, heat their homes in the wintertime. So not only do I believe that we are not going to cut Social Security, I believe we have got to expand Social Security benefits. And I'll tell you how we do that. We're going to lift the cap on taxable income. Right now, somebody's making $10 million a year, somebody's making $118,000. They're both contributing the same amount into the Social Security Trust Fund. You don't even have to start at $118. Start at $250,000. Lift the cap on all income. And this is legislation that I've authored. We can not only extend the life of Social Security for many decades until 2061, we can expand Social Security benefits and make sure that the elderly can retire with dignity. And when we talk about a campaign which brings people together, I think we all have got to recognize that there are 11 million undocumented people in this country right now. In my strong view, these people deserve legal rights. We need a major comprehensive immigration reform bill, and we need a path toward citizenship. And by the way, this is not only important for the undocumented workers, it is important for every worker in America. Because when undocumented workers are exploited ruthlessly, as they are right now, when employers can hire them for pennies and exploit them, it impacts the wages of every worker in this country. That has got to change. Let me touch on another issue that's been getting a lot of attention lately. And that is, we have, in my view, come a long way in fighting racial prejudice in America. I think if we were in this room 30 or 40 years ago, and somebody said, you know, I think we're going to elect an African American as president in 2008, very few people would have believed that, but it happened. But I think as all of us have seen in recent months and years, when we know that the names like Sandra Bland and Michael Brown and Rekia Boyd and Eric Garner, Walter Scott, Freddie Gay, Tamir Rice, Samuel DuBose, all of these names and all of those videos that are on TV, we know that we still have a long way to go to overcome racism in America, and that is something we must do. There are very few, if any, members of the United States Congress who have a stronger record on civil rights than I do. And my pledge to you and to all Americans is there will be no president who will fight harder to end institutional racism and reform our broken criminal justice system than I do. I saw the video, and I'm sure many of you have seen videos, where a couple of months ago a woman named Sandra Bland was yanked out of her car, thrown to the ground, assaulted, thrown in jail. And you know what her crime was? Her crime was she didn't use her blinker to make a right turn. That is not a crime that people should die for. And you know and I know that if that was a middle-class white woman, that would not have happened. So we need a series of strong reforms in criminal justice. We need to end the militarization of local police departments. We need to rethink the use of force protocols. I was a mayor for 8 years and I worked very hard with our police department, and the vast majority of police officers do a good job under enormous stress. Not easy being on top today, and we should understand that. But when police officers, like anybody else, break the law, they must be held accountable. Frankly, I think that the good police officers would like to see that happen. Because we need to take a hard look at minimum sentencing. What that means, too many people are in jail and their lives have been ruined because of nonviolent offenses. We've got to take a hard look at that. And in other words, there are many, many issues that we have to look at. But ending institutional racism and reforming our criminal justice system so that we do not end up with more people in jail than other countries, and a system which, for those people in jail, are disproportionately people of color. We can do better, and we must do better. I've gone on for too long already, and thank you for your patience. I get carried away, and I go on. Disease of the United States Senate. We talk and talk. But let me just conclude by saying this. I want you all not to think small. That's our problem to a large degree. Don't argue whether we should cut education by 2% or 4%. Don't argue whether we should throw, as the Republicans want, millions of people off of health care. I want you to think big about what our nation can become. Yes, in this great country, we can join the rest of the world and guarantee health care to all people as a right. Yes, we can do that. Yes, we can have a child care system which is the best in the world, not one which is much too expensive and too dysfunctional. Yes, we can create a situation where every young person and person in this country who has the ability can get a college education regardless of his or her income. Yes, we can lead the world in combating climate change. Yes, we can overturn Citizens United and create a dynamic democracy where we have the largest voter turnout, highest voter turnout in the world, not one of the lowest. Yes, we can do all of that and more. If we do not allow our opponents to divide us up based on whether we're born in the United States or not, whether we're a man or a woman, whether we're gay or whether we're straight, whether we're black or whether we are white. If we stand together and are prepared to fight for our kids and our parents, there is nothing that we cannot accomplish. That is our goal, that is our vision, and thank you so much for being part of it. Thank you so much. I think we have a microphone here somewhere. Where is the young lady with the mic? Okay, where are you? Right there. Okay. Why don't you walk down the middle, and people who have some questions or comments, we'll take a few.
We can really only go this far, so if people want to make a line right here.
All right, maybe, yeah, people, all right. Okay, great. Okay, maybe we're going to cut it off after Nebraska here. How's that? All right. Okay. Let's cut it off after Nebraska. I apologize, but we've got to get going after that. So let Nebraska be the last question now. Okay. Sir?
Hello. Thanks for coming out. I'm with the Global Health and AIDS Coalition at Iowa State University, and we want to know about your stance on PEPFAR, the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, which funds 7 million people globally for antiviral treatments and has been defunded by $500 million since 2010. Will you commit to voting for any amendment to the budget that restores funding to PEPFAR?
I suspect that I already have, and I certainly will. But here's another issue. All right, it's not just funding. It is the prices that the pharmaceutical industry charges us. Which I can go on. I've been taking these guys on for years, and it's not just drugs for AIDS, it's drugs for hepatitis C. As I mentioned, I was chairman of the Veterans Committee and worked very hard to make sure that all of our veterans get the health care and other benefits to which they are entitled. And we're going to continue to do that. But there's one issue. Just want you all to know. You got a drug company out there. A lot of the vets, for a variety of reasons, are dealing with hepatitis C. Very serious illness. Drug came out. You know what they're charging the public for this drug? $1,000 a pill. $1,000 a pill in a company that is making huge profits. AIDS situation is similar. You remember AIDS activists taking to the streets to fight the drug companies. So what we have got to do, yes, we have obviously got to make sure that that program is well funded, but we also have to tell the drug companies they cannot continue to charge us the highest prices in the world for drugs. sweating that much, all right. See, I've lost a lot of weight since this campaign.
Senator Sanders, my name is Tom Owens. I am the son of a proud UAW member, sir. God bless you for being here today. Since FDR once said, I will make the Republicans eat it and like it, I want to know if you are the next coming of FDR. We will fight for you if you will fight the Republicans in Congress. I voted 8 years ago for hope and change, and I am still waiting, sir. Thank you.
Tom, thanks for your question. I am very proud to have a lifetime, and it's a long life, voting record of 98% for the AFL-CIO. And I think they were wrong on the other 2%. But let me ask you, there's something else that FDR said. People should go to Google it, and it's interesting. 1936, he was renominated for a second term. And he stood before the Democratic Convention, and in so many words, I don't have the quote exactly. What he said is, he called them the economic royalists. That was the name of the billionaire class back in the 30s. He said, these economic royalists, they hate my guts. Never have they hated someone as much as they hate me, and I welcome their hatred. And let me echo that today. If the Koch brothers and the billionaire class hate my guts, I welcome their hatred because I am going to stand with working families.
Senator, I want to speak to when you spoke earlier about in order for us to make happen all of the things that you're speaking about, we're going to require nothing less than a political revolution. And I want to see if you will speak to us for a moment on the fear that a lot of us will have in bringing about that revolution when we see the Occupy movement not so long ago, when we see those fighting for civil rights right now. If you take part in the political process as an American citizen, you get arrested, you get harassed by the police state for civil disobedience, and it's very difficult for us to bring ourselves out in the kind of numbers that we're going to need to really create this change. How can you help us to create a path to where we know we can go out and we can speak as American citizens and exercise our rights as Americans to free speech and free assembly without fear?
Excellent question. Before I answer your excellent question, let me tell you two stories that pop up in my mind. I was elected mayor of the city of Burlington in 1981 as the first independent ever elected in that city. And we had to take on a political machine to do that. 1 year later, I was running with a whole slate of candidates who were supportive of me. And I was in a low-income community at the polling place in support of our candidate. And people came in, and I was the mayor of the city, pretty popular. People didn't come up to me. They just walked right past me. And I said, my God, we're going to get killed. Our candidate is really going to get slaughtered here. Nobody was coming up to him. Nobody was coming up to me. We opened up the ballots at the end of the day. My candidate won by a 2-to-1 vote. Now, what was going on? What was going on, and I'll never forget this, is people were so afraid of the establishment, so afraid of the political machine, that they didn't even want to come up to me. It was the mayor of the city to say, I'm supporting this candidate. You follow what I'm saying? That's fear. That's fear. And I'll tell you another story. I was in Louisiana last month. And this is hard to imagine, I think, if you're from Vermont or you're from Iowa. But I was in Louisiana, and people were telling me, you talk about fear. They have, or did have, police cars at polling places directly to intimidate people. Right? But you all know that all over this country now there is a massive effort at voter suppression. Cowards who are afraid to have low-income people or people of color voting, intimidating people. All right? That's fear. That's instilling fear. To answer your question, and let's be clear about it, when you take on the billionaire class, this is no small thing. They are incredibly greedy people, and they want it all. But I believe that you're going to have it's like a snowball rolling down a hill. You stand up, person next to you will start standing up. 2 of you stand up, 5 people over here will stand up, and 10 people over there will stand up. The issues that I have discussed today are not radical ideas. You want to hear radical ideas? It is giving tax breaks to billionaires and cutting Social Security. That's a radical idea. Raising the minimum wage and providing jobs is not a radical idea. Your point is well taken. But I think that what this campaign is about is giving confidence to people to do just that. And when we stand up in numbers, and by the way, many of these police officers you talk about, you know what? They're paying, and their pensions have been cut as well. So I think when we get a nation which says enough is enough, yes, we can protect each other. It will be hard. Taking on these guys ain't easy. Do I believe we can do it? Yes, I do.
My name is Mariah, and first, on behalf of college students everywhere, I'd like to thank you for standing up for our future. My question is, how do you specifically plan to address the after effects of the tough on crime movement, specifically the war on drugs and current mass incarceration, and what do you plan to do with all of the people that are released back into society labeled as criminals and felons that have no skills and no employability?
Very good question. Here's the absurd situation. We are arresting people for nonviolent crimes. We are giving them a police record, and in some cases we are incarcerating them. And sometimes people think, well, a year in jail, 2 years in jail, what's the big deal? It is a huge deal. It is a life-altering deal. You come out of jail, and you're going out looking for a job, and your employer says, oh, what have you been doing for the last 2 years? Well, I've been in a penitentiary. Oh, thank you. Have a nice day. You're not working here. We release people from jail who have no money, have no job skill, have inadequate education, and as often as not may have mental health issues. And then we are shocked when we see a huge rate of recidivism, people leaving jail and coming back into jail. And by the way, let me touch on another issue. We're going to introduce legislation to deal with this. I regard it as obscene that we have penitentiaries in this country run by private corporations. The idea that corporations are making profits by human misery is unacceptable to me. So there's a lot that has to be done. But what it includes is making sure that people have an education, that people have a job, that people have housing. And by the way, somebody may say, well, that's expensive. Well, you know what? It is a lot more expensive to lock people up. All right? So thank you for the question.
Hello, my name is Diana. I agree with you entirely about the loss of momentum after Obama was elected, and I felt badly about it too. What can we personally do for you the day after you are elected? We've, been struggling to have enough money, and that affects our time. What can we do for you to keep the momentum going?
Okay. It's not just for me. Let me reiterate the point. My job is not just to get elected President of the United States. That's going to be hard enough. But I don't want to become President of the United States if we cannot transform American society. And no president, not me or anybody else, can transform American society without you. have decent Republicans in this state who are voting for candidates who every single day are working against their best interests. Now, why, if I were a working class Republican, and there are many in Iowa, why would I be voting for somebody who wants to give tax breaks to billionaires and cut Social Security and Medicare? Our job, how you help me, is make sure that the American people know what's going on. How you help me is make sure that our young people are registered to vote and are coming out and voting. How you help me is make sure that people are going to our website and learning about what we are doing. Our job is to educate and organize, and when we do that, profound change will come in America.
My name is Andrew, and I came from Nebraska. But I just would like to know what your plans and policies are for phasing out fossil fuels and going to alternative renewable energy sources. And on top of that, you said $1 trillion in 5 years to redo our mass transit. Would that include,
Infrastructure, yeah.
Infrastructure. Would that include alternative energy vehicles, stuff like that?
No, actually, let me thank you for the question. All right, let me start off with the premise that I consider climate change to be an absolute global crisis, and it has to be addressed dramatically and rapidly. We can't do it alone. We have to reach out to China, Russia, India, countries all over the world. What does it mean? It means, for a start, energy efficiency, and that means not only in our buildings, but in our transportation. In the year 2015, frankly, we should not be driving cars to get 20, 25 miles per gallon, okay? So it means also creating a rail system which leads the world and is not further behind many other countries. It means moving aggressively, and I mean aggressively. We've introduced legislation called 10 million solar rooftops. Cost of solar is going down. I want everybody in this country, regardless of their income, to be able to afford solar. It means putting money into wind, geothermal, there are other technologies out there. Truth of the matter is, on this issue, we know what we have to do. This is not, and we'll know more. Technology will only get better. We know what we have to do. Problem is, we're taking on the Koch brothers and Exxon Mobil, who really are prepared to destroy this planet for short-term profits. It's a political question, not a technological question. All right? Thank you.
I just have to say I'm a psycho-benevolent. Thank you for coming. I must say that you have a really tough road to hoe after you get elected.
Yes.
So let me bring something to your attention as a senator that I'm just found out about. Medicare, you say we should all be on Medicare, has apparently just created a new set of rules for doctors and pharmacists and chiropractors, one of which is instead of 7,000 codes to report what they treat, there now will be 70,000. That's just asking for people to make mistakes. The second thing is my chiropractor said I won't be able to go see him unless I have a traumatic injury, and then I have to go 3 times in 1 month and 3 times in the next.
All right, let me just answer
Red
that. Look,
tape.
there is no question that the Republicans have been trying to cut and cut and cut Medicare. In fact, what they want to do is in Medicare is, we know it today, and make it a voucher system. Give you a check for $8,000 and then have you go out to some private insurance company to get your health care. The beauty of a Medicare for all single-payer system is exactly the opposite of what you described. It is a simpler system. It is a less bureaucratic system. The reason we spend almost twice as much per person on health care is the complexity and the bureaucracy of our system. I want people to be able to walk into the doctor's office, not have to fill out 1,000 forms, not have doctors filling out 1,000 forms. That's what happens when health care is a right. Okay. So, all right, you have been amazingly patient in staying for as long as you have, and I thank you very much. Look, this is an uphill fight. We're the underdogs. We're taking on a whole lot of powerful special interests. But I have less and less doubt when I see turnouts like this that we are going to win this thing, and with your support, that's exactly what will happen. Thank you so much.